Okay, everybody, in this section, we're going to talk about the Electoral College. And the Electoral College is a little weird, and people sometimes don't understand it, but it gets a lot of publicity, especially going into the presidential election years. So the Electoral College is a process, not a place. Even though there is a meeting of the Electoral College where they officially cast their vote for president, it's more of a process. And this was used by the Founding Fathers to establish in the Constitution kind of a compromise between election of the president by a vote in Congress or election of the president by a vote of qualified citizens. So this process can consist of selection of electors, the meeting of electors where they vote for president and vice president, and then the counting of the electoral votes by Congress, which was where we saw the issues with January 6th coming up. And they were actually certifying the votes, and that's when the objections were made, and we saw the violence outside. Originally, founders wanted wise and educated men to choose the president. So if we look at the Electoral College in a nutshell, it consists of 538 electors, and you need a simple majority or 270 to win. The only problem with this 538 number is it is an even number. So there is a potential for a tie. And we'll look a little bit about that when we get toward the end of this. The way your electoral college votes are determined is the number of members in Congress that you have in your state. So in 2020, we had 55 electoral college votes here in California. That was representative of 53 members of the House, along with 2 senators. So that's what gave us 55 electoral college votes. Now, the census was conducted in 2020, and we lost population here in California. So with the migration of people out of California, our number of representatives went down to 52. So, coming 2024, our representatives will be 52 plus 2 senators, so our electoral college allotment will be 54 electoral college votes. Under the 23rd Amendment of the Constitution, the District of Columbia is allocated 3 electors. So the minimum you can have is 3. So here's the article or in the provision of the Constitution that that dictates the Electoral College. We'll read it. Section 1 says the executive power shall be vested in a president of the United States. He shall hold his office during the term of 4 years, and together with a vice president chosen for the same term be elected as follows. Each state shall appoint in such manner as the legislative thereof may direct a number of electors equal the whole number of senators and representatives to which the state may be entitled in Congress, but no senator or representative or person holding an office or trust or profit under the United States shall be appointed an elector. So what this basically says is the parties now will nominate electors at their state party conventions or by a vote of the party central committee in each state. So what is this saying? So basically what this is saying is each political party in a state will nominate electors that will represent the candidate that of their party in the Electoral College if that candidate wins a popular vote in the state. So let's use California as an example. So the California Democratic Party will nominate 54 electors that will go to the Electoral College and cast their vote for president if their candidate wins the popular vote in that state. The Republicans will nominate 54, and the Libertarians will nominate 54. The Greens will nominate 54. And in the event of one of these candidates winning a popular vote in that state, whoever wins the popular vote in that state is entitled to all those electors, and then those people will cast their votes for the president through the Electoral College. Usually, electors are chosen by, as kind of a reward or, dedication to their party, and they may be state elected officials, party leaders, or people who have a personal or political affiliation with the presidential candidate. So remember, each candidate by party will have their own unique slate of potential electors. So the Democrats will have 54 here in California, the Republicans will have 54, and whoever wins the popular vote, their they will be the ones to go cast their votes for president. This happens in every state except for Nebraska and Maine, which have proportional distribution of the electors. And in Nebraska and Maine, the state winner receives 2 electoral votes, and the winner of each subsequent congressional district will receive 1 elector. This system permits the electors from Nebraska and Maine to be awarded to more than one candidate, and we'll look at some examples of that in action in a little bit. But remember, each political party will choose different sets of electors, and whoever wins the popular vote in that state will win those electors. So there is no constitutional provision that requires electors cast their votes for whomever wins the popular vote. Electors vote, there's no provision on electors voting according to who won the popular vote in their state. Some states, however, do require some electors to cast their votes according to the popular vote. These people will fall into 2 categories: electors bound by state laws and those bound by pledges to a political party. Today, it is very rare for electors to disregard the popular vote by casting their electoral vote for someone other than their party's candidate. So it's rare to see if somebody in the Democratic Party in California, when the Democratic candidate wins the popular vote, it is going to be rare to see that person who is an elector in the Democratic Party kind of go outside of that and vote for somebody else. Usually these electors are going to have some type of leadership, and they're going to be very, very loyal to their party. And throughout history, more than 99% of electors have voted as pledged. So here are states that have legal requirements that electors vote according to how the popular vote goes. So remember, again, whomever wins the popular vote, their electors are going to be the ones that vote in the Electoral College. So if the Democratic candidate wins the popular vote in California in 2024, those electors that are chosen by the candidate's party are going to be the ones to vote. And in these states here, they have to vote for the candidate as pledged, or it's a violation of law. You can see the laws here. Some of them are misdemeanors. We do have a felony in New Mexico where it's a felony to vote against against the person who wins the popular vote. And here's some other ones. A lot of it is fines, but there are criminal sanctions among them. And if you look at here and no legal requirements. So say, for instance, you are a Democratic elector in Arizona, and the Democratic candidate wins the popular vote. You are not bound to vote for that Democratic candidate. You can vote for whomever you want. Usually these may be called faithless electors. So these people have no legal requirement to vote how or for the candidate that wins the popular vote, even if they're in the same party. So there has been a challenge to this under the Supreme Court. Under Washington state law, each political party with presidential candidates is required to nominate for the Electoral College electors from its party equal to the number of senators and representatives allotted to that state. So kind of going along with what we talked about. Nominees must pledge to vote for the candidates of their party, and any nominee who does not vote for the party candidate is subject up to a $1,000 fine. So when Hillary Clinton and Tim Kaine won the popular vote in Washington state, this required that electors would vote and cast their ballots for Clinton and Kaine according to Washington law. Instead, they voted for Colin Powell for president and different individual for vice president. The Washington Secretary of State fined the electors $1,000 each for failing to vote for the nominee of their party in violation of Washington state law. In the case of Chiafalo versus Washington, the electors challenged the law imposing the fine as violating the First Amendment. An administrative judge upheld the fine, and a state trial court on appeal affirmed the administrative judge's ruling. So the constitutional question that came out of this is, does the state law requiring presidential electors to vote the way state law directs or be subject to a fine violate the electors' First Amendment rights? So this went up to the Supreme Court in a unanimous decision, which is rare at times here at the Supreme Court. The Supreme Court found that a state may constitutionally enforce a presidential pledge to support his party's nominees and the voters' choice for president. Article 2, Section 1 gives the states the authority to appoint electors in a manner as the legislative thereof may direct, which the court has interpreted as conveying the states the broadest power of determination on who becomes an elector. So the state is the one who has the authority to appoint electors in the way that they dictate how they want electors to be appointed. That's simple layman terms to enact that. So let's look at Electoral College. So and some actions. So when we went from 2012 to 2016, we saw Hillary Clinton win the popular vote but lose the Electoral College votes. Now, Obama won these states: Florida, Ohio, Iowa, Pennsylvania, Michigan, Wisconsin. We had faceless electors in Washington. In total, Hillary Clinton lost 107 Electoral College votes to what Obama had won in 2012. And that was an aggregate total altogether of less than 77,000 votes. And we'll look at the maps in a little bit. So 2020 came along, and we had one of the most hotly contested presidential elections that, is even still being argued. Some of the issues that came out of 2020 were, the response to COVID-19, mask mandates, the economy, racial inequalities, and maybe some of the rhetoric that came out of the Trump administration. So let's look at the states that Trump lost from 2016 to 2020. Georgia, Arizona, Pennsylvania, Michigan, Wisconsin, one district in Nebraska. In total, he lost 72 Electoral College votes, and the Democrats won about 278,000 more votes among these states in the swing states as opposed to 2016. So you can see how what areas of the country that Trump lost and some of the vote amount totals that he lost by. And here are some interesting kind of details that are put out there by the New York Times. So just a little bit put in detail. In 2016, the popular vote. Some people argue that we may need to go to a popular vote because the past two times in 22 years here in history, the candidate who's won the popular vote has lost the Electoral College vote. In 2016, Clinton beat Trump by about a little close to 3 million popular votes, but that's not how we elect. We elect by the Electoral College. 61% of the voters participated in this election. In 2020, Biden received about $15 million more votes. 15 million more votes than Clinton, and Trump received about 11 million more votes than he did in 2016. And we saw a 68 participation voting population amount, which was a 7% increase. Now, if you look at kind of historically at Electoral College races, this is 1984. This is Reagan really stomping Walter Mondale into the ground. Walter Mondale only won Minnesota, which was his home state. So this is a rout. 1992, the first Democratic president to be elected since 1976. Bill Clinton received about 370 Electoral College votes. And this is one of the things that's interesting, and when we talk about presidents and third-party candidates, Ross Perot, who was a third-party candidate, won about an astounding 19 million votes. And this might have cost George H.W. Bush the presidency, but it'd be hard to see. You would have to look at some of these states to see the difference of votes between Bush and Perot to see if Perot had an effect. But that 19 million is an astounding amount of votes to receive as a third-party candidate. Here's the 2000 election. This is one of the first times in history since the 1800s where a person won the popular vote but did not win the Electoral College. So Al Gore lost the Electoral College by like 5 Electoral College votes, but he won the popular vote by about 500,000. It all came down to Florida, right? And what I want you to watch is this, the endless election. It is a It'll be available for you. This is just my settings kicking in, but don't worry about it. It'll be a video about the 2000 election. So go ahead and take a look at it and how Florida had to be the one to really determine the winner of the presidency. And Bush won Florida by about 594 votes. 594, which is a very, very small, razor thin margin. 2008, Barack Obama's first victory, received 365 electoral college votes and beat McCain by about 10 million. You can see here Obama is going to lose some ground, only getting 332 electoral college votes and winning 65 million votes for re-election. And you can see that he lost a handful of electoral college votes, which Romney gained. He gained about 26 electoral college votes from McCain. 27, so about 33. And here's 2016, the second time a person won the popular vote but did not win the electoral college. And you can see 2020, what we talked about. And also here is the example of Maine and Nebraska. So Nebraska, one electoral college vote went to Biden, meaning that he won one district. And you can see the same thing in Maine. Trump won one district in Maine. Way too early. I mean, this may change depending on who the candidates are. So just kind of take a look at, this is way too early, and it's basically based off of traditional voting. Like the West Coast is traditionally going to be Democrat. The South is traditionally going to be Republican, but there's a bunch of swing states in play right now. And here's a potential Armageddon, really crazy situation where, with that even number, 538, you could potentially have a tie. So this would be an instance where we have 269 to 269, which would be crazy. And lead to a lot of contention. And in this case, the House of Representatives would determine who the president is. Okay, so that's basically it. Go ahead and take a look at the maps. There's a really good website called 270 to Win. And also this website here, they give you results by precinct. So you can go in and see in your area and maybe places that you are interested in how they voted for the president in these two situations. Okay, thanks a lot.